He's on. Hey guys, Josh here. I'm with one of my friends, Logan. Say hi.
Hey, how are you guys?
So, anyways, we both watched the Flash mid-season finale. I believe it was last night, as of when we were doing this video. And yeah, so obviously a few people are really confused still about the whole Zoom thing. So that's why Logan's here. Logan's basically the audience, to some degree. He's gonna make sure that I'm explaining everything in a coherent manner that is easy to understand. So, hey, you ready?
Yep.
Alright, so anyways, we have Dr. Wells. So Dr. Wells is essentially the combination of two Zooms. By the way, also Dr. Wells is a totally original character on The Flash. He doesn't have a comic book counterpart. Just like Eddie Thawne, which is, Eddie Thawne was a big red herring for this show. I've said it since day one, because the writers of The Flash are similar writers to the writers for Arrow. So they all follow essentially the same formula, plot line wise. So just like how Tommy Merlin on Arrow was the red herring for the Dark Archer, that's what Eddie Thawne is. The only thing both characters have in common with the comic book version is the last name. Both characters were made up for the show. And it turns out, for Tommy, his father, who also his last name is Merlin, he's actually a Dark Archer. Obviously, for the Flash, Dr. Wells is the Reverse Flash. Or I'm sure he's going to be called Professor Zoom when Cisco finds out and is like, oh, Dr. Wells, Professor, there we go. So, yeah, let's go down to Dr. Wells. So, essentially, he's the combination of two Zooms, because there's two in the Flash comics, Professor Zooms. One's actually Professor Zoom, Eobard Thawne, who's Barry Allen's enemy, and then there's Hunter Zolomon, who's Wally West's enemy. Good so far?
Yeah, I'm making sense.
Alright, so, gotta make sure, check every minute. Anyways, so, yeah, the things that, obviously, Eobard Thawne-wise, Dr. Wells has, is definitely being from the future and coming back in time. Also killing Barry's mother, and basically, if they go this route, fucking with Barry's life every single moment possible, but not too much to mess up the timeline. Also, we have Hunter Zolomon, like I said before. The qualities he has from Hunter Zolomon is the fact that a lot of people have pointed this out before, that Hunter Zolomon was in a wheelchair before he was Zoom. Also, he has this really twisted sense of like helping the Flash, kind of like Wells does. Wells would risk anything to make Barry a better hero. Hunter Zolomon's the same exact way. Like, Hunter Zolomon would kill to make Wally West a better hero in the comics. So, Dr. Wells, he did something very similar for Barry in the TV show so far. And honestly, it all makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't know, like, how do you feel about it, like, Wells?
Yeah, as a non-comic reader or comic fan, I can understand as the casual viewer, which I am, why it would be confusing. The Professor Zoom, Wells not being in the actual comics, all that. But as the show goes on, you obviously get more hints on what Wells is doing, what Wells is planning. And as Josh explains, it will get more clear.
Yeah, and actually Logan had a great idea that I didn't think about before, that, Dr. Wells continuously checks that newspaper. And a lot of people have pointed out, that's like the comics, the Crisis, that, the Flash saves the day, he risks his life and everything. But, if they're borrowing a lot of Hunter Zolomon and also Eobard, but Hunter Zolomon, a big thing he had was that, he wanted to make the Flash a better hero. Is it maybe possible that the reason why, Dr. Wells went back, and he's training the Flash right now, is so the Flash not only stops the Crisis, but actually survives it, instead of dying and, going missing, as they call it. So, all in all, basically to recap what we've, covered so far, Dr. Wells, original character for the show, the combination of the two Zooms from the comics, because, they're not going to do Wally West anytime soon, if ever, on this show, mostly because Grant Gustin is the main cast member, he's Barry Allen. Wally West would kind of undermine his character, because, they basically just set up him as Kid Flash, eventually taking on the mantle as Flash. Also, they haven't said Iris has a brother or sister, to even make her an aunt. And they can't do Wally without him being the nephew by any means. So, yeah, speaking of which, going on with Zoom and everything, I mentioned Eddie before. So with Eddie, I definitely think he's not going to die. And a lot of people point out, oh, why didn't Zoom kill Eddie? That's because, a lot of people think Eddie in the future becomes Zoom. That's not the case. If you know anything about genealogy, you have to have ancestors. Eddie Thawne is the ancestor of Eobard Thawne, aka Dr. Wells. Therefore, for him to kill Eddie would basically erase him from the timeline. So, yeah, that's basically why Eddie won't die at all. And that's why I think Eddie's going to move probably at the end of the season. Like, him and Iris are probably going to break up, and he's going to move. Barry and Iris are going to, come together in typical CW fashion. Now, Logan had if I remember correctly, you had an interesting theory or two regarding, like, Eddie and everything like that. Let you share that, your thoughts.
My theory with Eddie is that eventually Eddie will, let me recall it, Eddie was as we know, Eddie is the ancestor to Wells, and I think I'm slipping my mind, Josh.
Slip mine? All right.
Yeah, no, sorry about that.
You're good. But yeah, definitely Dr. Wells. Now, a lot of people, a last final point, so to speak, in Dr. Wells and all that stuff. A lot of people have mentioned, why would he be the villain? He's trying to help the Flash. He's been very close with Barry and Joe and all that stuff. And it's a very simple answer. It's called drama. They want you to know the character. So when they do the reveal, obviously the Barry, it's a big deal for all of us. We're gonna be like, we already knew that. But it's gonna be very dramatic. It's gonna be very impactful on the character. Like an example would be, Spider-Man, the Spider-Man movies, with Green Goblin, with Doc Ock. They establish and they set up and they, they let you know the villains ahead of time, both for the superhero Spider-Man and for his identity, Peter Parker. So when the twist was, revealed, or like, the identity was revealed that, these Norman Osborn is Green Goblin or Doc Ock is, Otto Octavius, it had more impact on the character. So it's all for drama, really. And, I can't wait until they have that great "it was me" moment. Also, for the time stream, a lot of people are confused about, the time travel mechanics involved. Basically, what it looks like is that it looks like Zoom has the basic Speed Force powers, but the suit is what is going to give him that extra push to allow him to travel through time, which I think is great. I think it's nice that he's not going to be able to do that by himself because he'd be a little too powerful. I know, do you agree with that? He'd be a little too powerful?
Yeah. I agree.
So yeah, that's definitely why the tachyon thing is going to come in handy. But a lot of people, it's great. I like it. I like the Flash a lot.
I do have one prediction, though. As Josh said, he has an idea that Eddie and Eddie will be breaking up with Iris.
Yeah.
At the end of the season. And my thought with that would be that Eddie has his task force. And my thought would be that since Eddie encountered the Reverse Flash, or Dr. Wells, we think, he's going to become now obsessed with the Flash, if he already isn't. He's going to become obsessed with the Flash. He's going to try to hunt down the Flash in order to hunt down this Reverse Flash. But in turn, I think that is what's going to break up Iris and Eddie, because we've already seen they've had conflicts about it. He has a task force, she has her blog. We already seen that conflict. I think that's going to happen. They're going to break up because he's going to become so obsessed with this, and that's when that's possibly when Barry could reveal to Iris. If not, then they'll probably get together like Josh said.
Yeah. Or, there's a lot of theories that Eddie's going to become their version of Cobalt Blue, which is possible. They might take him like an anti-hero spin versus like a villainous spin before he leaves. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm kind of mixed on it. I do hope we get to see the future, though, Dr. Wells comes from, because it looks like what the finale is going to be for the season is, Barry and Wells fighting. Now, I thought about this, when I woke up earlier today, for the third time when I woke up. So I woke up a few times. But, moving on. So, when I woke up, I thought, they have a prototype, or they did. Maybe Cisco tries making a new one to replace that other one. Maybe like in case they're going to trap, Reverse Flash Professor Zoom again. The reason I say that is because, obviously, Reverse Flash has it. He's probably going to end up using that to travel, back in time because tachyons theoretically, there's theories regarding them and time travel. I'll explain those, later on with a super science video. But yeah, so essentially I can see Thawne going back in time. He actually might be trying to go back to his future, but due to how his powers are, and they're like basically the reverse of the Flash's, he ends up going back in time. And then Barry follows him. Now I'll let Logan say the rest because Logan had this what I was talking about earlier. Slipped Logan's mind, but he had thoughts on this whole part.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is soon Wells will reveal, or Barry will find out that he's the Reverse Flash. And what needs to happen is Wells goes back in time because he has to kill Barry's mother because he needs Barry to be in the precinct when the dark matter storm happens. But the reason Cisco said he saw the yellow and red lightning, like the night of when he was fighting Reverse Flash, like the night Barry's mother was killed, was because Barry was actually there. Barry finds out and eventually goes back in time when Professor Zoom tries to kill Barry's mother, which is also the reason why Barry ended up on the street, because Barry had to save his younger version of himself while he was in the living room fighting Wells.
Yep. And that's when his mom dies.
Yes, of course. That's when Barry goes to save his younger self. That's when Wells or Reverse Flash can capitalize and kill Barry's mom.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much it. Explaining, the current Wells situation, clearing that up a little bit. Hope that guys help you guys. You get it?
Yep. I understand it completely.
All right. So, yep, this was Logan.
Nice to meet you guys.
Clap for Logan. Comment for Logan. But anyways, yeah, so I hope this helped you guys out. Comment below what you guys thought on Wells, Eddie, Barry, Iris, whatever you want, Wally, if he ever is brought into the show. Speaking of which, if they ever do the sidekick route, which they probably, or sidekick / partner route, like they do with Roy, I'm hoping it's Cisco. He becomes Vibe like he is in the comics, using his little engineering mind in a more active role. Don't want to see Caitlin become Killer Frost just yet. I ship her and Cisco right now after Cisco comforted her about Ronnie. But that's it. I'll see you guys later. And, yeah.